So, guys, if you have got ideas, we all know we have ideas, they're running in our minds all the time, and you're like, I have got to figure out how to take these great ideas, these great insights, and communicate them with people more effectively. Ideally, through some types of visual aids. We call them framework diagrams, call them whatever you want. But if that's where you're at, you're like, man, I've got great ideas. I need to figure out how to be able to more effectively communicate this with my ideal clients or customers or whatever through visual aids, framework diagrams. This is the conversation for you. We are diving into that today with the one, the only, my main man, Phil Lashley. Thanks for being
Man,
with me,
thanks for
brother.
having me. What an intro.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm so pumped about this. In full transparency, this is take one of one, right? We are doing these live. It's called Build Your
Yeah,
Brand Live, but it's basically an opportunity to just have a killer conversation with somebody that's doing amazing work. We're actually helping each other. Phil is a member of the Brand Builders Group community, but just as much as we help him, he's helping us. He's helping other members of the community, just like so many of our other clients, because frankly, they're great at what they
exactly.
do, right? He's bringing so much expertise in his domain that I was like, man, let's have this conversation because one, I want to learn some more from you about your genius, right? Your area of expertise. But ultimately, there's so many other people out there that are going to
Of
benefit
course.
as well
Yeah.
because we're all in this boat, right? I think I always say like ideas are a dime a
Yeah.
dozen, man. Everybody's got
Yeah.
ideas, right? They're all over the place. The challenge is being able to take that idea and actually do something with it, right? Actually make that idea come alive, and that's what most people don't do and struggle to do. That's the hard work, right? And a key part of making an idea come alive is figuring out how do you
Yes.
communicate it, right? Like how do you take all this stuff in your
Exactly.
head that's probably been shaped over many, many years of studying whatever somebody studies or whatever they do. And how do we more effectively communicate it with people? So that's why I just feel like this is so applicable to really everybody. I don't care what kind of business you're running or what kind of
Yeah.
personal brand you're building or whatever. What you do is so applicable. So that's why I'm just excited to dive in with you, man. So give us just a little, before we get into all the
hmm
good stuff, give us just a little background on yourself, just kind of like where you're. I know you're like I never know where you're tuning in from. Like you're like a world traveler. I was like, man, I need to be like Phil. This guy, he's working from Costa Rica. He's. I was like, "Ah, I gotta get on his level, but yeah, just kind of where you tuning in from. Tell a little bit about yourself, just so people have a little
Yeah,
context
yeah,
on
yeah.
you.
So currently I'm in the US actually, in Central Florida, just for the month, 2 months really. But for almost today's like a year of this recording, where my wife and I we were traveling mostly Central America, Guatemala, Mexico, Costa Rica, just building the business while enjoying travel. And well, my wife, she's a writer for small brands and travel spaces, and she's a photographer as well. So she's doing that while we both travel, enjoy this. We call it a dream that we never thought would happen. So
I love it.
currently we're in the US though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're just like everybody else now, but kind of the normal
Yes, this
spot,
is
but
base.
I'm sure you won't be there for long,
Yeah.
right? You'll be back on the road. But so how did you get into all of this visual design stuff? And that may not be the right label to put on it. So, you can correct me if you
Sure,
need
sure.
to, but just give us a little bit of the backstory on how you found yourself doing kind of like what
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
now.
So I am from Barbados. Um, so that's where I was born and raised most of my life. I grew up there, and I was actually in a field where I was not enjoying it. Computer studies, IT tech, that was me. Office, very corporate, tie, laptop, if you can imagine that. And
Yeah.
essentially, I grew to love design through commercials. So I just followed the rabbit trail. I eventually got an opportunity to go to school in Miami at the Art Institute. That's where I came to the States, migrated to the States. And ever since I was working in studios, either directly affiliated with marketing, advertisement, entertainment, a lot of some Hollywood studios, and kind of got my feet wet as a fresh, like new student from art school. And I quickly
Hmm.
realized during me, like, okay, this is cool for your portfolio. And don't get me wrong, it served me well and everything, but I wasn't really enjoying the kind of work. For the time you put in for the output, it wasn't, I couldn't see myself doing it for a long period of time. So that's when the moment hit me where I said, instead of just doing motion design, investing all these tons of hours, instead of just doing it, why don't I use it? So I saw motion design now as a tool that could be used in maybe different spaces, but I wasn't sure which spaces yet. And just by sheer curiosity, I tried, helping authors. I've been always helping speakers with their keynotes and their concepts. And it came to a point where I said, you know what? This might be a space where I can shine. And not only that, but provide like the most value, the way how I'm wired, because I really love books now, self-help books, and that kind of long story short, um, those books while I was in Barbados really shaped my thinking. So in a sense, I'm trying to give back to that community, the thought leadership space of, okay, these people have really good ideas, but they're really, really struggling with the visuals, especially younger generations, they're not really into these books. So I found myself being almost called, to serve this space on a deeper level because it is personal. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So what do you see? I mean, if we dig deeper into that
Hmm.
personal kind of like conviction you have to go back and serve and do the work you do, talk a little bit about, in my opinion, if you say there are all these great people, great
Hmm.
minds, right, great ideas, but if if you can't transfer that idea to other people, right, you're limiting the impact,
Definitely.
right? Like you could have the best ideas in the world, but if you don't know how to package them in a way where they can go
Yes.
viral or can
Yeah.
permeate to other
Yes.
people, right? Like you're truly not having the impact you can have in the world or just on the in your community or the people you're best positioned to serve. It could be big
Yep.
or
Yep.
small, like it
Yep.
doesn't really matter. But is that like a little bit of the heart behind it? Is like you see people that are really smart but just struggle with taking their insights and expertise and getting them in the brains. It's
Yes.
almost like getting it in the brains of
Exactly.
other
Yes.
people,
You're
right?
hitting the
Like,
nail on the head.
you know,
Yes. Yes. That is exactly it.
yeah.
And I think it's actually sad to see like some of my younger brothers, for example. They're not into a lot of these self-help, leadership kind of stuff, like the John Maxwell's, maybe John Maxwell because he's really well known, but even some of the younger leaders, I think they're disconnect. There's a disconnect. There's this gap that I think a visual storyteller can come in and try to connect the dots for. And here's the thing. I think this is the quote that I wrote this one time where it kind of brought everything together. Where I see creativity as not just this thing that's reserved for creative studios. These big agencies, innovation agencies, is really a tool that can be used for anyone with good ideas, anyone who has a good, strong message to share. They want to connect with their audience. Creativity, I think
Hmm.
there's so much we can do in this thought leadership space to help make that connection. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, so true. I mean, and that's what I love about what you're doing is you're taking a high level skill set, right? I mean, like you've done this type of work for those design
Yes.
studios, for those innovation labs, and like it's easy when you can just be creative and you have a whole team
creative
of creatives
director.
around you to take
Yeah,
your ideas and innovate, so like, but as we all know, if you're startup,
yeah,
small
yeah,
business, whatever, like you're wearing multiple hats, and you don't have the luxury of always just having those
exactly.
people around you. So it's cool, kind of the work you're doing to make it more accessible. Now, obviously, we'll talk at the end about how you can actually help people. But one of the cool things we're going to dive in today is like just your methodology
Mm,
and your approach to how you do what you do. Which the beauty of this is it's going to help a lot of people just kind of wrapping their
yeah,
head around a systematic process to take their ideas and package them in a way that can be transferred to others more easily. So just for context, I want to let me share my screen just for a second,
sure.
and I, so we talk about frameworks, right? Or we talk about creative
Hmm.
storytelling, and all this stuff. But it's kind of like, just to be super clear, you know what it is, right? And this is the way I think about it. I'd love to hear from you. What you think as well, like, but just so people see it. So at Brand Builders Group, we're a personal brand strategy firm, so we've got a pretty big curriculum.
Yes.
Our curriculum is vast, as you're seeing here, right? So there's 4 phases, 3 topics in each phase, right? Each one of these topics, we're looking at finding your brand DNA, captivating content, etc. Each one of those has like 6 pillars, roughly. The
Yeah,
detailed
yeah,
steps or work you need to do to find your brand DNA or create captivating content or build a world class presentation, right? The list
yes.
goes on. Um, so our curriculum is vast, and so we love acronyms, we love framework diagrams. Like we're big practitioners of what we
Hmm.
preach. And so when I think about what you do, Phil, it's basically saying helping to develop visual aids like this as one
Yes.
example. All right, great. Like, how do you build an influential personal brand? Well, based on Brand Builders Group, there's a 4 phase
Hmm.
process, and there's kind of 3 steps you can think about in each phase. And I could talk to you for hours about that, but having a diagram like this framework diagram that helps us communicate how we do what we do to prospective clients and then actual clients, once they start working with us. So this is what we would call a
Yeah.
foundational framework inside Brand Builders Group. Not to mention, like, this is another one, she hands wall. Phil, all
Yes.
these, right? Like, you see it, but it's like, how do you become more well known, right? And why do most personal brands or individuals just
Yeah.
not, right? Why do they get lost in all the noise? And we use the she hands wall diagram to kind of walk people through. You're in the unknown space. You want to be known by more people. Why do you
Yeah.
stay over here? What helps you break through,
Yeah.
etc. So that one's, and then another one that's killer is what we call our brand DNA helix, right? So Phil, you're another
Yep.
framework diagram. How do I figure out if a key first step to kind of uniquely positioning myself in the market, me personally, the business I'm focused on growing, is understanding my uniqueness, right? Like, how do I figure out my uniqueness? And then we use this brand DNA helix to say, like, your uniqueness lies at the intersection of kind of these 6 questions, 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom.
Nice.
So these are all visual aids, or what we call like framework diagrams, that help us communicate different ideas and strategies to people we support. So just with that, Phil, what would you elaborate on that?
Hmm.
Like, I'm sure I may have limited thinking when it comes to the
Right.
work you do. So maybe that's one expression, or maybe but just round that out a little bit with your take on kind of like the outputs at the end of the day. When you
Yeah.
do what you do, what would be kind of the
Yeah.
outputs that people could
Yeah, that's a great
expect?
question, man. So, for example, let's go back to the first diagram, the fundamental
Yeah,
framework um, called the brand
yeah,
builder's journey. So, I'm always trying to look through the lens of the end user, the viewer, or the audience
hmm,
in some cases, of if it's a speaker. In this case, it will be a member of this particular group, right? You have four sections, and what my approach would be to try to get the end user, the members, to have some kind of connection to this diagram. Like this is important.
Mm.
Um, yes, it's in four colors. Yes, it's really nice designed, but I take it a step further, like, and this is for any framework. My goal is not just to help people explain themselves visually, right? I think it's good um, to be seen and to be understood, but I think it's better to be remembered. So in the
Mm.
case of a brand builders,
Let's yeah. So it's I want we need to run that one back. So it's good to be
yeah, it's
seen,
good to be
right?
seen.
It's good to be
Yeah, but it's
understood,
better
but what you really want to do
remember.
is be
Yeah.
remembered.
So I mean, this course is very intensive. Is simple, intense, simple in a way of is step by step as a member. It's not all at one time, one step at a time. Yes, but it's also it could be overwhelming thinking of all these things, man. I committed my year to this. Is it 1 year? Is it 10 years? Like, where am I? These are questions that members could get a little overwhelmed about. So,
Mhm.
first of all, I would try to find a way to make that connection. So it kind of makes me at ease. Okay, where am I in this journey? And what does this really mean? So, for example, my framework is called Frame. It's just a way to literally see an
Yeah,
idea so that can be
I
understood.
love it.
So the F is acronym. The F is for feelings. I'll go through quickly and then I can explain a little on each one.
Do you want me to leave this up
Um,
so you can kind of like reference this, or do you or
yeah,
no?
actually, if I can share my screen for a second. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So this is the gold, folks, right? So this is he's taken us through his methodology, the frame method, to help you visually communicate, your insights and expertise in a way that makes you memorable, right? Like not only helps you communicate your insights, but helps people remember it, which is key. How do you make your innovation
yeah,
sticky
I
at
like
the
that
end of
word.
the day?
Yeah,
And I love it. So the first F
it's for
is
feelings. Yes.
feelings.
Now I'm
Okay.
trying to share my screen real quick here, just the entire screen. Yes. All right. Let me know if you can see. All right.
Yep. Got you coming through.
So let's just say, and this is really interesting because we didn't prepare this before the call. I was already kind of like
Yeah.
diving deep into it. Um, so
I
this is a
love it.
brand builders with Frame. The game here. The aim of the game is trying to be go a little deeper so it can be understood and also be unforgettable. So feelings. The question here is, what feelings do you want your audience to have when they interact with your ID? And in the case of this example, the brand builder's journey, and I went and I made some assumptions here, a sense of always being guided in the right direction. That comes with
Mm.
the feeling of trust. Okay, brand builders is like a trusted guide. I'm following them through this course, this wheel. And just the wheel itself, I wasn't the one who designed it, but whoever did was genius to kind of make it look simple in four quadrants. To me, it feels like a vault almost, like um, a wealth of information is behind this vault. You know, the entrance to a vault, you turn the dial. That's kind of like going on the
Hmm.
deep end, but I use that
Yeah.
as a
No,
way
that's
of
cool.
okay, we're not changing the framework, we're not changing the visuals, right? Everybody's kind of familiar with how it looks. How can we leverage what has already been done? So a sense of being guided, feeling. The R is a relatable concept. Again, you come back to that vault analogy. Every time I want to do a chapter in this course, is like I'm going into this vault, right? Brand Builders Group, they hold the key, to this essential set of information that is important for me. So the question
Hmm.
is, what relatable concept can you use for people to understand your ID? I'm using a vault in this case, but it could be another visual metaphor, or essentially what we're asking here, Jeremy, is what's the story? What is something people can easily relate to? All right, let's go to the A, aesthetic.
So just so I'm tracking
Yeah.
here, so relatable concept. So I get the F, so
Mm-hmm.
feelings. So what kind of feelings do you want to create on the consumer
Yes.
side? And then R is a
Concept.
relatable
Mm-hmm.
concept. So is that so again, you're saying in for the brand builder journey, it's more of this idea of a vault of information. Like you kind of like, hey, this is I have confidence in my
Yes.
guide, and this guide has got a vault of information that is giving me confidence that they know how to do what they're saying
Precisely.
they can do. Is that am I
Yes.
tracking
Yes. You're dead on.
properly with you?
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
All right. The A is for aesthetic, and this is the one that is kind of easy. Everybody does this. They hire a designer, and that aesthetic is the look. What should this look like, right? How can this be defined visually? And we have these um, icons. Each icon relates to a particular topic, and there's modules under that topic. So that one is easy. Everybody gets that one. M is the message. So this one I found to be key. Like, it's not the message of the brand builders group itself or the client. The idea. Okay, we're talking about.
Hey, real quick, before we
Yeah.
go to the M, I just want to again make sure I'm tracking. So the
Hmm.
aesthetic, is that all design work, or is there
Yes.
so not only those icons, but the full framework
Yes.
diagram or whatever. So really, all creative or design work is really happening under that aesthetic,
The visual appeal. Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you just to talk? Because I think again, you're the expert here, so this is awesome. Me initially, I'm thinking, well, all of this is
Hmm. Hmm.
design, right? It's like, hey, well, it's all the
Right.
aesthetic, but you're saying that's actually one step of
Hmm.
many, and you have to have a broader strategy around creating visual aids or creating or doing the aesthetic work, which makes so much sense. But tell me a little bit just approach when you do the
Hmm.
aesthetics. Are tools like just like how do you see different people? If somebody's wanting to do it
Yes.
themselves,
DIY.
right? Like yeah, like what are some tools that you would recommend people
Hmm.
looking at? And then obviously, what kind of tools do you use when it comes to the
Right. Right.
aesthetic element?
So I'm glad you made a differentiator there. If you're a designer, that's one thing. You can look at colors. Colors have meanings. Shapes have meanings. The quality of lines have meanings, and you can go down the rabbit hole. If you're a
Mm,
designer, you get it, right? For a non-designer, for someone who is more DIY, who is, you know, not in the design space, what I usually tell them is just collect images in a folder that you like. As simple as that. Have a folder, have a inspirational folder, and just drop images in there, save them from Pinterest, Google, wherever. It doesn't matter. At least you have a
mhm,
springboard or a platform now you can share this with a designer. At least you guide them in the right direction. Um, some thought leaders are a little more advanced where they do have a sense of who they are. They would have gone through like a test, a visual test. There are several around. One that comes to mind is from our friend Nadine with Visual Brand
mm,
Kit. She has a brilliant test for someone who is not design savvy to go through questions based on what you like, your taste of different things, and it's scientifically proven to result into this set of colors, at least that you can say, hey, okay, this represents my thought leadership. But if you're not doing
mm,
that, if you have nothing, I would say the first step would be to just pull images into a folder that you resonate with, and when you get to share that with a designer, now you guys can collaborate and they'll be able to better guide as to, hey, okay, you may not want to use red. Red gives a certain kind of emotion. Coming back to feelings again.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
So it's really rooted in science, which I love. It's not like just preference, right? So that would be my approach.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I know one thing, and maybe this is just too
Hmm.
basic because I'm a you know I'm like the furthest from a creative and a designer. But for me, just I'm going to share my
Sure,
screen
sure.
again here real quick. Is we love the old inside PowerPoint. I think this is coming again, but the old smart art,
Hmm.
right? It's like this is like the cheat code. I feel like feels like, man, that's not real design. What are you
Well,
doing?
I'm not.
Um,
I see what can be done with it. Again, our friend Nadine, she's phenomenal designer in PowerPoint, using PowerPoint. So I reserve the knocking.
yeah, yeah. But again, I mean, these are just for anybody that's just
Yeah.
starting out. Like, hey, I got
Hmm.
great ideas. I got to figure out how to better communicate them visually, right? That leveraging
Absolutely.
tools just like this that are baked into software you probably already have is a great way to kind of just get started, and then you can always up level. But all of this is still just on the
Yeah.
aesthetic
Yeah.
side, right? So we haven't even, that's just one of five,
Hmm.
kind of elements you need to be thinking about when it comes to how to kind of communicate your insights and expertise. So continue to take us. So we have feelings, we have relatable concept, the R, and then we have the aesthetic was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
A. So if you want to keep
Well,
rocking us through your
actually, I want to stick a
list.
pin real quick on aesthetics. I'll show you a real life example. A client is a work in progress project, and they this is a doctor, and she has words. I'll take you really quickly through how we helped her. If is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, it's perfect. I
All
love it.
right. So this was essentially what we came up with through dialogue. She kind of knew all of this.
Can you send in just or maybe you don't want to
Uh,
kind of share? Yeah,
yeah, I
perfect.
don't think she'll mind. She's trying to get this out there. But this is like this crappy, really brainstorming. She has a customer journey that she's wanting to visualize. So after taking her through frame, we decided, okay, let's simplify this visually. This was like a quick thing to get her up and going. Little narratives and the idea of this pathway. Okay, you're taking your customers through this health journey, and the idea of walking in a trail
Mhm.
came up. So from there, we went a little deeper, and along with my team of illustrators, we created these beautiful little short stories that correspond with the
I
words.
love it.
And this is tapping into, again, I guess they call it the neuroscience of story. It really helps people to be pulled in and have these emotions and have this deeper connection. So she was really pumped about this idea of representing this. All right. So
Yeah.
this is where we landed. And some short, we had a character. It made sense for a character to be created in this case. And people could identify with her. And she's targeting females. So we
Hmm.
haven't changed her thinking. Her ideas are still here. We just represent them in a more relatable way that told the story. And yeah, I just wanted to share that. That's a really
I
good
love
way.
that. That's
Thank
killer.
you, thank you. And it was this co-creation effort too that really resulted in something like that.
Yeah, so that's slightly up leveled
Yeah,
over
yeah,
the
yeah.
smart art
Just a little.
feature. Slight improvement.
Again,
But yeah, I
the
mean,
goal is to get people to
yeah.
connect, to remember, right? And sometimes that art, you
Hmm.
can help people to remember using that same clip art, but once you put a spin on it, like in the case of brand builders, it is clip art in a sense, but we reframed it. It's not just a set of circles and shapes. It's a vault. It's the entrance to a vault, right? Um, so
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So one thing, and if you're going to hit this, let me know. But uh, one thing when you just and who's the client, just so we give some
Oh
shout
yes.
outs
Her
to
name
the
is
client there, since
the
we
one
can
that we
share.
just showed us, Alice Buron.
Yeah.
Alice, Dr. Alice Buran.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Cool. Yeah. Just since we showed some of
yes,
her
yes, yes.
insights, we want to give credit there for
Amazing
sure.
person. Yeah.
But one thing you showed us, and it was really seemed like it was one of the early steps in your process, just through that example you shared with us, um, was just having the person walk you through how they do what they
Yes.
do, right? And I don't know if that shows up somewhere in the frame method or not, but um, it seems like the foundation for being able to do the work you do is kind of having some type of logical
Oh,
structure
yes.
around the insights and expertise that are in your
Yes.
head, right? Like if you don't have some method behind the
Right.
madness, right? Like there's not some way you do what you do, and that way can kind of produce repeatable results for
Yes.
your clients, right? You've got a fundamental issue, right? Like that you could create the greatest visual
Yeah.
aid possible, but and it may be super memorable, but if it doesn't
Yeah.
produce results,
Yeah. It's
we've got a
a
fundamental
fundamental
flaw.
problem. Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's two sides to it, which this is, getting into a little bit of our captivating content, that
Yeah.
second kind of, step in our journey, right? Is how do we take all the insights and expertise and logically structure them so that we can take other people through a repeatable process to get consistent results, etc. And then you're coming up to say, hey, how do we kind of represent that visually so it
Yes.
it, it can it can go viral, people remember it, etc. But to a certain extent, you do have people kind of walk you
Oh,
through how they do
absolutely.
what they do. If they're a brand builders group client, you're kind of taking what
Yep.
they've already
Yep.
done with us. But if not, you're kind of having people just walk you
Oh
through
yeah.
like she did
Oh yeah.
on that
Absolutely.
first
Everything
step,
falls
right?
apart if that doesn't happen. Because at the end of the day, she's the one who's going on stage at these keynote sessions. She's the one who's going to produce a digital course, and she needs to connect with it and fully, like, there's no room for ambiguity. Like, she needs to get it. And for her, once I pitched the idea, okay, we're going to tell a story about your client walking through this health journey, and if she didn't resonate with that concept, then we would have had to look for
Hmm.
something else. So you're right, it's a co-creation process for sure. Yeah.
I love that. And one thing, and we'll jump back into the frame method. This is just kind of we're
Yes, it's
going loose
fine,
with
man.
this
I love this.
wherever it takes us. So um, one thing I want to talk about just for a minute is when is the right time to do this? Because I feel like one, it takes time, money, effort, right? It's an investment, especially to work with you and make something look like really nice. Um, and so I think it's important to just understand that, hey, let's feel good about the methodology before we go, invest in really up leveling the
Hmm. Hmm.
visuals for it to help it
Right.
scale, right? Like it's almost to a certain extent, we're trying to scale up our ability to take your IP and put it in the minds of other
Yes.
people,
Yes.
right? And it could be as part of a book, it could be as part of a course, it could be part as a keynote or whatever. But you probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably don't want to invest in
Hmm.
things like this if you're in the really early stages of taking your process or your ideas and trying to
Hmm.
use them to help other people. Like you want to validate your methodology a little
Hmm.
bit before you, because you're building some awesome stuff, but if you do all that and then realize 3 months later, like, wow, the process is
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
wrong, we're now having to redo it. So talk a little bit about timing, like in your
Timeline.
mind, how do you think about the right time for somebody to really start diving into the
Yeah.
frame method and up leveling the
Yeah.
visuals for
Yeah.
their
So there's
ideas?
two different things here. So there's the highly polished visuals and animation. That part, I would say, you should be really confident that your business model, like everything's really working. to some extent. Even course
Hmm.
creators, I'm learning that, for a course creator to invest heavily into a really polished package is a high risk because they're not sure if it's going to sell. So there's that, but there's also the issue of, um, is this, am I really doing justice to the idea? So I would say using frame could be at any stage. It could be, actually, I suggest as soon as you think you have an idea, run it through frame as fast as possible because it doesn't cost anything to think and talk about it, the idea. Frame is just a way to,
Yeah.
that's why it's free. I'm making it available for anyone to download. It's just 5 questions to talk through an idea to like check, okay, yes, there's a concept. I have a story. I have a look in mind. What's my message? And even just the message, which is the next step, the M for frame. Do I have one message that I'm trying to communicate here? If I have three or four, that's an issue. You want to be super clear with one message because you only have a certain amount
Right.
of real estate in somebody's mind when you're talking about ID. Um, so I said to reiterate, frame should be used as often as possible, as soon as possible, at any stage in production.
Yeah. Well, I love it. And this is again me when I think about what you do, like I immediately go to the
Yeah,
aesthetics and I'm like, well, hey, it costs a
yeah.
lot of money to do high level design. Like, should you maybe wait? But you're like, no, the
It's just
aesthetics
one.
is
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
five steps. And these others, which we will shortly get back to finishing the methodology.
That's all good.
It's like the cliffhanger, like we can't get through it all. But you're saying like, look, there's value when anytime you get into saying, hey, I've got some ideas, I want to communicate with other
Hmm.
people. There's these five steps, this method that you should be going through at any point in your journey. Just knowing that the aesthetic step, maybe you do an MVP. We keep it
Yeah,
basic to
yeah.
start, like with the smart art or something, like if that's an example
Hmm.
of keeping
Hmm.
it basic, lower cost. And then as you get good, better product market fit, it's like this thing is killer. We're actually getting more and more traction. How do we up level the
Yeah.
aesthetic, right? You can always come back because naturally if you're taking an iterative approach with it, you may have an idea and you're just trading time for money to
Right.
start to kind of get your initial clients, coaching them, consulting, whatever, running them through your methodology, using your basic
Yeah,
smart
yeah.
art diagrams to start. But then it's like, oh, cool, like people are paying me, I'm getting good results, I got more money to reinvest. And then you can say, hey, how do we take the aesthetics to an even higher level,
Yes.
right? So am I thinking
Ex
about that kind of the way you ease into it
yes, yes, yes,
accurately?
yes. Either if you have a team or an individual, it doesn't matter. You can do this by yourself. A CEO, head of a department. Just 5 questions. Just take yourself through it, and that would. Here's the thing, like the things that we actually remember, or the things that really stand out. You think back, commercials, TED Talks, videos, even podcasts. Like everything could be framed. Everything could be framed.
Mm,
You know, I think
I
about,
love that
yeah, I think
frame.
about like, I mean, I'm not sure if everyone is into the Super Bowl halftime show, but you see a performance and you say, oh, that was a good performance. If you really think back about it, it was well framed. There's a clear feelings. There was a relatable concept. There was a clear aesthetic. Stood any performance that stood out, it was really framed. They're not using my frame method, but there's a clear
Hmm.
feeling. There's a clear concept. There's a clear aesthetic. The visuals, the performers are all dressed a certain way for a reason. There's a clear message, and the E is expression. We haven't gotten there yet, but that's like how else can I express this idea? Um, in the case of Rihanna, I mean, for this is the 2022-23 Super Bowl.
Hmm.
Um, Feeling. There was a clear feeling there. There was a clear vibe from even before the show. There was a video she sent out talking about a story of her hometown, and that went viral the week before Super
Mm.
Bowl,
Oh,
right?
wow, I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, like humble upbringing is like you see the street that she lived, her home, what she used to do for fun. She used to fly kite over a graveyard, and the ad, it was so cleverly done. You can see her culture essentially. So that was setting the, clear feeling, very nostalgic.
Mm.
Okay, that's F. All right, relatable concept. Now, in that video, we have the idea of things that children would do. You see her flying her kite. Flying a kite is something you do for fun, it's something very noble, it's very cultural, right?
Hmm.
And let's go to the show now. Like the way her dancers are dressed, they were all in the same red. She's telling a story there already, right? So
Hmm.
it bleeds in from her pre-show into her show. Her message, I think, was clear. She was pregnant again,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't get it at first, but it was so cleverly done. I thought all this was to reveal, okay, I am pregnant again. Or if you want to dig a little deeper, you can see female empowerment in there. Um, small, small girl, big dreams. All those messages come up, depending on how you look at it. And E, the expression, at the end of her show, she pointed to one of her makeup lines, her products within the
Hmm.
performance. I'm not sure if you saw that,
Hmm.
but her team was so on it. She basically had a product launch right after the show, and her sales just went through the roof. So it was very strategic, and that's one way. That's just an example of, I think, someone who used frame. I mean, she didn't use frame,
Yeah, but yeah.
but anything that you remember, whether it's a good movie, a good Netflix show, you would see the feelings are strong. There's a concept. There's a simple message. You know, so I'm testing this thing, and I'm really trying to put holes into it, and I'm realizing that is a really good tool for people who don't think they're creative
Yeah.
to actually think creativity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and the last one, just so I'm clear on expression, is
Hmm.
that what are the other ways this concept or this information can be expressed? Is that, am I tracking? And in
Yes, yes,
Rihanna's
yes.
case, it was
Yep.
that product line.
Oh
But
my gosh, yeah,
yeah, how would you in Brand Builders Group, like how do you what would be an example of that, as you
yeah,
think about our
yeah.
four-phase process or whatever?
Right, right. So in the case of brand builders, um, so it's like taking a step back and seeing, okay, this framework is on the course curriculum is on digital,
Hmm.
within the course. Where else can you put that? Where else
Gotcha.
can you communicate to your members? Here's the journey, and here's where you are. Like me, the member can see, okay, I am here. It could be expressed as fridge magnets, for example, like a set of magnets for a fridge, some
Mm,
place that you go frequently, the kitchen, and
yeah.
you can always be inspired. Okay, I'm here. This is next. I got this to go. It could be expressed in a wall, a frame
Like
in your
poster
office.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and these are easy things to really extend the idea. In the case of an author, you launch your book, you can come up with a book of quotes, like pull quotes, a
Hmm.
companion book, for example. Usually we get stuck, I think, in thinking, oh, well, a design, a picture, or a video is the answer. But if you peel back the curtain a little bit, have a bird's eye view, you might see other ways you can express this singular idea that might be very sticky.
Hmm. Man, I love it. So recapping quickly, so the feelings,
Yep,
so F is the feelings you want to kind of
feelings.
like create on the consumer side. What do you want them to feel? So relatable
Yes.
concept, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, the A is the aesthetic, where again my head immediately goes, right? So limited thinking over here. So then the M is message, right?
What's the
So
one message?
and we would call that kind of the through line or
Mm,
message, and from a brand positioning
yeah.
statement, which you're well aware of, right? What is that
Yes.
through
Yes.
line? The kind of the core concept. And then the E is the aesthetic, right? So that's or
E
the
is
expression.
the
Is the
expression. Yeah, the
expression, yeah.
expression. Hmm.
So how can we take the concept and express it in other ways through other
Yes,
assets or whatever it might be? So, dude, that
exactly.
is killer. And I love the fact that it's, one, it's something that's accessible and valuable to everybody, like immediately, right? Like if you're
Exactly.
thinking through your ideas, how you do what you do, how do I make it more sticky, right? You'll run through that frame method, and I think you're guaranteed to end up on a halftime show. I mean, Super Bowl halftime show, right? And I know Phil, at this point you can't technically say you advised Rihanna on the on the frame method, but one day, man.
Mm, mm.
Well, awesome, brother. Well, I know we're getting close on time, so just
Yes.
number one, thank you for just being willing to
Oh, for
share
sure.
your insights and expertise
Absolutely.
with everybody. I just know there are so many people out there that have the great ideas, right? Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
they've got the ideas, they have a process that can help so many people, but they don't know how to take the ideas and the process and communicate it, like transfer it to others in a way that can one just land, right? People can wrap their
right.
head around it, but two can be sticky where they retain it and they can actually more
Yes.
be more successful doing the work they need to do to see the results. And so, yeah, I'm excited because the work you're doing is helping really knowledgeable people help more people,
Yeah,
and that's what it's all about at the end of the day is serving and helping
exactly.
the people. And I love your heart behind it and just your genius you bring to the table to help people do that. So,
Uh,
where
Thank you.
would you send people? Like if somebody's like, man, I got the frame method, this is killer. But I want a little bit more about the frame method and just to kind of remember, what I need to do or how to do it, or just learn more about you. Where do you want people to go?
Sure, sure. My website's just my name, phillashley.com.
Can you
Um,
spell the last name just so we make sure they
oh
get it?
yes. It's Phil Phil, and my last name is Lashley.
Perfect.
phillashley.com.
Awesome.
It's available for download. Once you go to the website, it pops up. You just have it for free.
And
Yeah.
that's to be able to see the details behind the frame method and
Yes,
and
it's
and
actually a
kind of,
workbook. It's actually a workbook. It's fillable. You can take it through step by step,
I
or
love
with
it, man.
yourself or with a team. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for making that resource available as well. That means a lot. So,
It's my
any
pleasure, man.
last words? Anything you want to leave people with before we bounce? Or you good?
Yeah, I'll just leave by saying this, like, in a world that is so busy, like there's so much noise, especially on social media. People are overwhelmed. People are tired of being sold to, like people are tired of everything, right? I
Mm,
would say instead of just aiming to stand out, right? Instead of aiming for attention, like grabbing people's attention, aim for being unforgettable.
mm. Yeah, and I love that. And you do it with a well thought out approach to what you're
Yep,
going to communicate and how you communicate it,
yep,
right?
yep,
I love that. It's not so much just about more noise, right? It's
yep.
more substance, right? Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
how do we
yeah,
have better quality versus just
yeah.
quantity?
And
Um,
by doing that, you will stand out, by the way.
I love it,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
Awesome, Phil. Brother, thank you again so much. And we'll be sure to run another one of these back at some point. But
yeah.
in the meantime, keep doing the good work you're doing, my man.
I will. This was fun. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jeremy.